Go.
You have to press the red button for the film. And welcome to your 21st birthday interview. And a series of questions. How do you remember the last interview 7 years ago?
I don't. I was just saying to Daddy that I really don't remember
That's a shame, isn't it?
doing the last one.
Okay, so would you say since then has your life improved or disimproved?
Do I have to pick one? Do I have to pick one?
I think you'd have to elaborate. Or you could also take the middle road
I think I take
and
the
say
middle road
in
and
what
say
way.
life just continues.
So, would you be able to say in what way it has improved and in what way it has disimproved?
What way has it improved?
Since you were 14, remember?
Yeah, since I was 14. I don't know, it's all just different. You can't really say that it's improved or disimproved, it's just different.
Okay, so maybe the question that I'm asking you next might help you to...
Okay.
So at what stage of your life are you now?
Postgraduate.
Okay, so maybe you could tell us a little bit more about what you did, your years at university.
I went to Dublin Business School and did a 3-year BA honours in the arts of psychology.
And can you tell us more about your subject and that kind of stuff? What interested you in that course of studies?
I had a bunch of different modules. I had a psychoanalysis module every year, I had a data analysis module every year, and other than that I had changing modules. So I did developmental psychology, cognitive psychology, history of psychology, introduction to psychology, can't remember any of my other modules.
And how about your mémoire, your thesis?
Oh, my thesis. My thesis was on flow. The title of my thesis was The Relationship Between Anxiety, Self-Regulation, Self-Efficacy and Flow Experiences in Undergraduate Students. It was 10,000 words long. I got all significant results because all of my hypotheses were true.
And what kind of feeling did you get out of writing, a substantial amount of words?
Yeah, the thesis was fun. I mean, the thing about doing any kind of, what would you call it, any kind of study for your thesis is that you have to have certain parts done by a certain point. So I think a lot of people in the arts have an experience where they are writing 10,000 words 2 months before it's due. Whereas if you're doing any kind of study, you have to have your experiment prepared and your data in by December. You've got to have your results done by January. You've got to really have written your introduction by December as well. And then you're just left with the discussion. So it was all pretty easy to write. I liked it. I mean, I went with an idea that I came up with in second year. We had to do mock thesis proposals and I came up with that idea for flow. Because it had research rationale, and then when it came to third year they were like, oh, remember when you did those mock thesis proposals? Do another one, but this time do the real one. And I was like, well, I got a good grade in the last one, so I'll just go with that idea.
Okay, so basically you finished your thesis more or less a year ago.
Yeah.
So I think it's been not an ordinary year for you since you finished your thesis.
Yeah.
Could you maybe elaborate on that?
Well, after I finished my thesis, I did my exams, and then I was here for the summer and I was working as a research assistant, but I had a lot of spare time because I was able to make my own hours, so I would just do like 10-hour bursts of data input and then I would hang out. And then I moved to Paris, and then I've been living in Paris for the last 6 months.
Could you tell us maybe why you felt you wanted to move to Paris and why you didn't take up the obvious route of a master's right away after your BA?
Well, I think a lot of people underestimate that your brain needs a rest after you, like, I think a lot of people think that an undergraduate thesis is really an unimportant thing, but at the end of the day, if you took it seriously, you just wrote 10,000 words on something that is quite difficult for anyone to comprehend, and you've understood it. Like, you've basically become a little bit of an expert in this one thing. And that takes a lot of brain power. I think people don't give themselves a break after their undergraduate thesis, so they find it quite difficult doing their master's thesis because they're like, I just did this and it was really hard and now I've got to do it again, and they like hate it then. And I didn't want to go into a master's and hate it, purely because I was already exhausted from doing an undergraduate thesis, because I think that's a pity. You don't need to do that. If you just take a break and then go back and do your master's and you're much more willing to work, then I think you'll enjoy it better.
And how did you think a break in Paris would kind of, I think you did this for other reasons as well, more personal reasons, and I don't know if you want to talk about them.
Well, yeah, sorry, I was just saying why I didn't do the obvious thing of a master's straight away. The reason I went to Paris was because I always thought, a big reason was that I always thought it was such a pity that I don't speak French. So I did want to go to a French-speaking country to learn French. I wanted to live on my own. I wanted to be outside of the network of Dublin.
Yeah. And so to get back onto the French thing a little bit, would you say, in what way do you think you see yourself now that you've been, and we'll get back to the personal stuff in a minute, but just from the point of view of your genealogy, now that you've lived in Paris, do you feel yourself more French than, say, when you were 14, at the time of the last interview?
I think at the last interview, I think you asked me something similar, like, do you feel French or Irish? And I think I said I felt Irish. Now I feel, and I talk to people in Paris a lot about this, now I feel much more comfortable introducing myself as half French, half Irish. When people ask me where I'm from, I say half French, half Irish. I don't know if that's because of the internationality in Paris. It's like a lot of people are from, have parents from different places, so it's more normal to be half something, or they're not from the country that they're living in, so there's just a lot more internationality.
And would you say, I mean, I'm just putting words in your mouth there, but would you say that your fluency in French might be part of that? Was it difficult for you to become fluent once you got there?
Well, I think it's a lot of like the idea of, firstly, pronunciation has always been easy for me, obviously, because I learned the phonemes as a baby or something, because that's just never been a problem. Phonemes. But in terms of sentence structure, I actually think it might have helped as well, because there's it's like the whole Sapir-Whorf thing. It's like, if you understand the way of thinking, then it's easier to form.
Yeah.
It's easier to form sentences and make stories that like fit more, that sound more natural in that language.
And would you say, for example, that this aspect has brought you more understanding about the way you come from a family that's not in Ireland anyway now? There might be more bilingual families, but when you were little, there were very few of those families around.
Yeah, definitely. And I say that to people, which is that like I didn't know anyone, and I know we went to the Alliance Française, but that was different because a lot of those people were French, and it was very obvious that they had their kind of isolated French community. But I didn't know anyone who was integrated in my primary school or in my secondary school who was bilingual, or really who was half one thing, half the other. Like Asia is half Pakistani, but she's one of the only other people in my year of 120 girls who didn't have two parents from Ireland.
And I think it seems to me, and I'll get back to because I don't want to spend too much time on this, but it's interesting because you're working with kids whose parents, or are they? Maybe one family is bilingual.
Yeah.
But anyway, you're working with kids whose parents' goal in life is to get their kids to be bilingual. Both kids.
Yeah.
Could you talk maybe about the two kids you're minding at the moment? Or?
Yeah, I work with Violette Iskandar, who is 4 years old. Her dad is French, her mom is Swiss. Both of her parents speak fluent English. I know her grandmother on her mother's side speaks French, English, and German. So she knows a few words of German as well, and she spent some time living in Abu Dhabi, so she also speaks some Arabic. So she speaks a lot of languages, and then the other kid I work with, Victor Kostasek, is, I thought he was 4, but actually I think he might be 3, unless he got his own age wrong, which happens. So maybe he's 4, but he speaks fluent English. Both of his parents are French, but I think they're business people. I think, no, she's a doctor, and he teaches maths in university. But for one reason or another, they speak really good English and they socialise with a lot of people who speak great English. And he goes to an English-speaking school, so he has, in my opinion, fluent English and French.
I think we're going to get back a little bit to more personal questions, if you don't mind. I'd like to understand, to answer in a more, if you can, if you don't find them too personal. The first thing I wanted to talk to you about was about your network of friends. I think you have a very wide network of friends, and I think you kind of have, not a methodology, but I'd like you to speak, if you want to, about what attracts you to other people, how you make friendships, how many people you know, the type of people you like, that kind of stuff.
This is the number 1 rule of interviewing. Ask someone one question. Which one do you want me to answer first?
Well, I'm just giving you, I don't know, because I don't remember the order, but I'm just giving you an idea.
Okay. In Dublin. Because that's 2 very separate networks.
Well, feel free to say.
Okay, I'll do Dublin. I think in secondary school, I think this happens to a lot of people in Dublin. They have a very solid group of friends who all know each other, and they don't have any friends outside of that. So it's a very insular community. And then I think what happens to a lot of people in Dublin is that they actually stick in that community when they go into university, and they don't make any more friends. And if an individual in that group does have some other friends, they're considered a very social person. Whereas I think I definitely had a big group of friends in secondary school, but once I got out of secondary school, as I was getting to the end of secondary school, I started becoming friends with a different group of friends, and I kind of opened it up to me that you don't have to be committed to one group of friends who you don't see anybody else. So once I got out of secondary school, I started trying to branch out, I guess. But in university, I had this very interesting social life, which was that I had individuals who I really, really liked. So I would be meeting either them on their own, or I would be meeting them and going out with their group of friends. That happened a lot in university. That was meeting individuals that I particularly liked from various different groups. Yeah, that was what happened in university, and then now I'm in Paris, and it's kind of similar, because I do a lot of I go to a lot of international events and stuff, so there's a lot of meeting people at these events, and then liking those people in particular, and then I'll try and introduce them to other people I know in Paris, but it can be difficult because everybody's busy.
Yeah, it's interesting because it strikes me that your 21st interview comes at a very different moment for you in your life compared to PJ when he was 21.
Yeah, he still had a year to go.
Yeah. So it's kind of focused on this year because it's kind of a big transition year. But feel free to go back over the years. I just wanted you to maybe have a few words about your best friend, Niall, who is an interesting character, I think.
Yeah. I mean, if there's one, I don't know though, because that's the thing. A lot of these like particular individuals that I was meeting up with in university, kind of on their own, are people who have now been around for a long time. Like Niall is someone who I would meet up with on my own, or then I would go out with his group of friends a lot in university. That happened a lot in university. And Niall has now been around since I was 11. I met Niall when I was 11. The summer before first year, before I had turned 12.
I think you talked about him in your last interview, actually.
Really?
Yeah, I think because we were talking about sailing.
Yeah.
And Lydia and that.
Well, this summer we will have known each other for 10 years.
Yeah.
So Niall's been around for a really long time. Barra is a friend who I was out with last night, and I've known Barra since I was like 14.
Yeah, can I just ask you about Niall, because I think Niall is an exceptional. What makes him exceptional? What do you like? What do you think is the reason why you're best friends with him?
Probably like a shamelessness, unapologetic nature. Yeah, lack of judgment as well. He really doesn't judge people. He really takes people as they are. He really doesn't care. A lot of people say they don't care about bullshit like how popular someone is or how cool they are. But then a lot of us can't help it in our core, kind of caring about social status. Niall really, at his core, doesn't care about social status. He just cares about what someone brings to a conversation, if they're having a good time. If he's having a good time, then he's done.
He doesn't care from what you...
His box is ticked. He's like, cool, I like that person because I had a good time with them.
Yeah.
And that's really all that matters to him.
And do you think this is a common personality type? Or
no, like I say, I think a lot of people like to think that they don't have other qualifying factors for friends, I should say. But deep down they do.
So again, personal feelings, and feel free to not, you can answer if you want to. Coming back to Dublin, impressions, having been away.
Yeah, the first time I came back was only for like 3 days or something. So that was for my graduation, and then I also went to Metropolis, the music festival in the RDS. So that was just really rushed, and I had only been away for like a month, so it didn't really feel like anything. And then when I came back at Christmas, I came back for 2 weeks, and again it was very easy to get back into it. At that point I'd only been away for 3 months, so I remember saying to you when I was here for Christmas, I was like, that feels like I never left. Coming back now after 6 months, it definitely felt weird the first few days. Like, it was very dreamlike to be hear the place names and see the streets again. It was very, there's a big disconnect there. It's really nice to see people. Everyone's been really nice. I need to sneeze. I think when you go away, everybody has this experience that it's like when you come back, your true friends are like, really show their true colours, and they're like, they appreciate you because you're back. So that's nice. But I don't know, there's been a weird feeling this time where I think it's like, I feel like there's a limit to what I can do here, because the fact of the matter is that my life is now in Paris. So it's like, I can't really, like, yes, invest too much. I can't really invest anything. Like, I can busy myself, I can do things that are worth doing, I can play piano, I can catch up on shows that I want to watch, I can help around the house. Those are all worth doing,
yes.
But they're not.
I think it needs to be said aloud on this thing. You've been, and it's not my interview, but you have been a very good help when you've been back and before. So, what do you think this year has brought to you?
This year in Paris?
Personally.
Well, it's not done yet. I'm only halfway through.
Well, yeah, I mean...
What do I think this year has brought to me? the thing is that it's not that I doubted I had this. So I was gonna say independence, but it's more like the opportunity to exercise independence.
Yeah.
Like I already knew I was capable of it and that I liked doing it, but yeah, it's kind of the actual circumstances in which I can.
Yeah. Any surprises about yourself that you've discovered? Anything that you thought, I didn't know that about myself?
I think honestly, more of the thing that surprised me is how simple my values have turned out to be. But again, I feel like I already knew it. But when you're living at home, for one reason or another, it's easier to get distracted by like what your priorities are in life. You kind of don't realize, if that makes any sense. Maybe because you have such an intense network that your priorities are really kind of
diluted
by other people's priorities. Whereas when you're really moved to a country all on your own, where you have no network, it's really just you and what do you want to do. So.
And it seems to me maybe you could maybe let us know about your lifestyle, which I think is probably very different from when you were 14 in terms of eating patterns and spending money, that kind of stuff. I think that's one of your core values at the moment. Maybe you could tell us about.
Yeah, definitely one of my core values at the moment. Definitely something that I joke a lot about with people in Paris is this idea that I'm like living the monk life, because I live in like a 9 square meters, so I have no space, which means I can't have a lot of things, so I don't have a lot of material things, and I also don't have a big kitchen setup, so I don't indulge in, luxurious foods. But I mean, on top of that, I'm really interested in veganism at the moment, because it's better for your health, it's better for the planet, it's better for the animals, it's better for the people. So like a lot of what I'm eating at the moment, and when I tell people, they're like, God, that's awful. But a lot of what I'm eating at the moment is like rice and beans is a staple, oats are a staple, bananas are a staple. It's great though. Like people think it sounds really austere and like self-punishing, but it's like actually not. It's actually really lovely and cheap. But it's like also makes you feel good, and yeah, but also it's just I don't have a lot of money as well. That's the other thing. I don't make a lot of money. My monthly wage is quite small, so I can't spend a lot of money. So everything about my life at the moment is very non-indulgent.
And could you talk to us about, because I mean, do you want to talk about your clothing habits as well? Because they're in line with.
Well, clothing is probably the one thing where I'm not so much of a minimalist, to be honest. Although I am a minimalist with clothing, like this is my one pair of shoes. I got